Today we are going to talk about pouring watercolor. Before you pour any watercolor on your paper, it's best to wet the paper thoroughly so you don't see any dry spots. And the reason for that is just to help the flow of the water and to help it sink into the paper rather than just pouring off the side. I started this earlier, and the little dropper on my P.H. Martin watercolors, liquid watercolors, was clogged, so it ended up doing this rather harsh line here, but it really doesn't matter because we are going over this so many different layers. Have your spray bottle handy so that you can help direct the water. So I'm putting the brightest yellows in. Primarily this is the sea, this is going to be the sky, so I don't want too much in the way of yellow down in the sea, because if I put too much blue in there, it's going to turn green. So I'm keeping the yellow primarily above the horizon line. And I'm just letting this do its thing. See, if you do it like that, it's way too quick. That's okay. We should have a tissue in our hand so that we can catch any drips, and we can keep the water off from going under the tape. And because I know that the majority of this is going to be blue and this is going to be blue, I'm just going to let this run down here. But I want some areas where I want the yellow is my underpainting, so I really want that to cover this whole area. But not in the, just in different strengths. Pouring watercolor takes patience because you have to dry between each layer. You also have to dry the masking fluid. So it's not a painting that you can just keep working into, generally speaking. Now I don't have a Pyrrole red or a quinacridone red in this pouring in the P.H. Martin, so I'm just going to use this Indian red. It's going to make some really nice darks and really make very pretty for the sunset. And that's a bit thick, so if your paint's too thick, you can thin it down with water, of course. And because the sunset is always horizontal, I'm going to keep my pores mostly horizontal, a little bit on an angle maybe. That would be kind of pretty. So you can see where the red and the orange, or the red and the yellow, are mixing. We're getting a bit more of an orange, which is of course what we want. We want some orange, we want some red, we just want some pretty. Anywhere I don't want it, I can just wipe it off. And I do want some of the reds down in the down in here in the sea. Now I don't have an ultramarine blue in this, but I do have a Payne's gray. So I'm going to pour my blue in here. Because this Payne's gray is very blue, the P.H. Martin. So it's really a blue, not a gray, honestly. So we want our water to be fairly consistent. And then our sky up here also, but it's going to be very dilute. So if I want to make it a lighter value, I'm just going to use more of the water. And I'm going to dry this. You see we're getting a little bit of green here, which is okay. I don't mind that. I am going to take this brush and soften this blue, because I don't like that hard, harsh line there. So this is the fun of watercolor. You just keep playing with it until you find something, the look you want. Soften that a bit. So it's all about how you rock your paper and how you control it. You can't control it, but to a small degree, but you can. That's really pretty right there. See how you can get these nice, cloudy looking, moody skies. It's just beautiful for doing skies. Sometimes I will pour a sky and just then do the, see, now I'm liking that. So I would leave this at this point, lay it flat, and let it dry by itself, or dry it with the hairdryer. You can see it is a really messy process, but it is fun. And if you use ultramarine blue, you're going to get a slightly different look. This is just extra paper that I put on, extra tape that I just put on there to hold this from buckling so much. Okay, so I'm going to dry this and we'll be back. Not only do I use these droppers, but I also use pipettes. This is a pipette. You can use a pipette to drop your paint or to pick up your paint if you have excess paint in your tray. I also use these little cups. Any bowl or cup to mix your color in will work fine. But my favorite containers are these little travel containers that you can get at Target and the drugstore. And basically, I just pour the pigment, squeeze the pigment straight into the bottle, and then just add water until I get it to the consistency and the strength that I want. And the key to this is to shake it up really well, or stir it really well if you're using a bowl. You don't want chunks of pigment in your mixtures. So I think that's probably a bit stronger than I need. But this time I'm going to, and I'm controlling where I pour this. If you can't control or you don't want to try to control it, you can use masking fluid. So if I'm gonna do another pour right now, and this is totally dry, I'm gonna wet the whole thing again, ever so lightly, so that I don't disturb the paint. Always clean your brush in between so that you don't accidentally contaminate your painting. And I think we'll start again with the yellow. we'll just rock it around. Have it go in the direction we want it to go. Get your paper towel before you pour. And if you don't want it up in here, you can just blot it up. Okay, I'm liking that. I want this to come off the page though, so I'm either just going to use the brush or I can use the spray bottle. Now I'm going to drop in, this is the Pyrrole Red, and we know how powerful Pyrrole Red is. I want it to migrate in different areas. I want some up in here. And you see how much softer it gets because of the, that looks very pink actually. This is actually, it's not Pyrrole Red, it's Bright Red by Sennelier, which does have a little bit of pink in it, but it's actually lovely. Because we want some red in our sky, we want to get rid of that yellow. So let's get rid of that green right there. And you can do as much of this as you want, as many layers as you want. You see how the water just makes it look so much more realistic by just spritzing that. Beautiful. In any place you have a hard edge like that, you can either spritz it or you can touch it with a brush. And because I want my clouds to come down this way just a little bit, I'm going to hold that on an angle like that. I don't want this yellow in here down this far, so I'm going to wipe that, blot that up. Put a little more red down there, just to counterbalance that yellow so it doesn't turn so green. So one thing when you do skies, you have to be really careful that your blue and your yellow don't make too much of a green. But in the water around where I live, the water is quite green, so it's not a big deal. However, this is how you correct that. So let's put a little more blue in here. And again, it's really that strong. I could have diluted that if I really wanted it less strong, but I like that dark color, especially in the sea. Very pretty. I'll just let it run all the way down. And you can always touch it with your finger if you need to as well. And I think we're going to call that done. Not crazy about the pencil line right through there. You're doing this, be sure, keep your, if you're gonna lay your painting in your tray, to keep your tray clean. And here you have it. I did go back in and darken the horizon line and soften the edge on down there just so we would have a distinct horizon line. And there it is.